Once upon a time, on a little-known island in the Caribbean called Dominica, cocoa was big business. Dominica was known for its fine flavor cocoa, but as bananas boomed and other crops dominated the landscape, cocoa production was all but forgotten. And with the passage of Category 5 Hurricane Maria in 2017, almost all of what remained was seriously devastated. As the demand for fine flavor chocolate rises, CAN, the Caribbean Agricultural Network, seized the opportunity to develop some of the core pillars required to build a sustainable cocoa industry through a GEF Small Grants program, developing sustainable cocoa options for Dominica. The program utilized scientific methods to genetically identify the types of cocoa, provided farmers with training in everything from grafting to harvesting, and taught farmers innovative ways to earn more revenue while farming cocoa in a sustainable manner.
As the title suggests, developing sustainable options for cocoa production in Dominica. The whole idea was to relook a production system for cocoa and see what areas that needed to be improved and to develop. One of the crucial areas was in terms of our germplasm, right? What are the types of cocoa we have in Dominica, and specifically those with very good traits for chocolate making and for processing and so on. One of the first order of business was to try to identify those clones and to be definitive about them, and that involved collecting samples from across the country and have them analyzed and so on.
What CAN has sought to do is approach it from a scientific standpoint where we can do that DNA fingerprinting to know exactly what it is we have, what are the constituents, what makes up what we call fine cocoa in Dominica.
After collecting cocoa samples from around the island and using GPS to tag their locations, 60 samples were then sent to the Cocoa Research Center in Trinidad, where they were identified genetically through a DNA fingerprinting technique.
At the Cocoa Research Center, we use a state-of-the-art detection system in order to genetically fingerprint the cocoa samples we obtain from Dominica. These samples from Dominica, we're extremely excited to see that over 50 of the samples, 50 of the 60 samples were completely unique, totally different from the 6,000 reference profiles. Of those 60 samples that were sent, 17 had at least 30% Creole ancestry, and about 11 had at least 50% Creole ancestry. And this is exciting and great news for Dominica, because the Creole ancestry is one of the important facets for fine flavor cocoa. So it means that Dominica is well poised in terms of its genetic farm material to have excellent fine flavor cocoa, and they can then use this to develop the industry better.
Back in Dominica with this newfound insight, CAN was able to provide farmers with plants of known genetic makeup, a number of which were planted on 4 demo plots, which were established as part of the program.
What we did is to put the different cultivars in straight rows, label them so that in future we do not have to go back to the far places we went to collect those samples to send to Trinidad. But we already know what they have. They are already labeled on our demo plots.
We wanted to train people in areas of grafting. Propagation was really key because this was coming in after Hurricane Maria. We wanted to make sure that we build that capacity to produce plants so we could actually have more cocoa, and really set the foundation for building a sustainable cocoa sector in Dominica.
Through the GEF-funded program, CAN was able to provide 3,000 grafted plants, and as part of their farmers training school, farmers were trained in how and why to graft their trees.
I took part as a facilitator in cocoa grafting and propagation. So we did from sowing the seeds, nursery management, pest and disease management, how to graft, how to select your graft, what varieties, what characteristics you're looking for. So I think we trained a total of maybe 60 persons combined. So I was training them in how to clone their plants. In grafting, you select a branch from a mature tree, thing that will determine the plant you'll get in the end. And for the rootstock, you choose the seed from the cocoa pod. So there's different parentage of cocoa, I would say. So there's the Forastero variety, which is known to be drought tolerant and more disease resistant than Criollo. But Criollo is fine flavor, so Criollo will be the scion and Forastero will be the rootstock. So the scion is what you want for the fruit production, the pod to make the chocolate or the cocoa sticks. But the rootstocks also is to fight diseases in the soil, so you have to be specific as to what rootstocks you use. So after you graft it in the 3 months, you cover it with a sleeve. You cover it with a sleeve to keep the humidity for 14 to 21 days so that the plant don't dry out. And after that you remove it, and then from there there's another 3 months in the hardening stage before they can be field ready to plant out in the field.
After these plants were field ready, they were delivered to farmers. On the 4 demo plots established, cocoa was planted alongside traditional and non-traditional shade crops and cover crops that reduce the need for chemical weed control and provide income as the cocoa trees mature.
Bananas and plantains are excellent shade crops for cocoa. They grow very well. And we actually train farmers in doing micro-propagation, how to produce disease-free plants, right? That are, not affected by nematodes or borers and so on. And we're trying to promote that whole sustainable type of production where we rely less on agrochemicals, right?
Over 180 persons were trained, 25% of which were women, as well as a number of youth.
Well, we plant some bananas first, and then after those cocoa, we had really plant those cocoa, and then after we plant some more bananas because of the shading for them.
First time I heard about the program, I was interested because I also wanted to start off with my personal farm too. I asked my mom about it, if they could run a demo plot on her farm, and I was pretty much interested. So we went ahead, and thereafter I pretty much took interest in everything what Can had to offer.
When Lloyd and Mr. everyone come and check us, I decided, okay, I would like to plant a field of cocoa. I would like to plant the short crop that I can get a faster crop. So I decided Tanya and Dashin and cassava. That's what I like to plant in the cocoa. Number one, they show us how to plant the cocoa. Yeah, I learned how to harvest for sure. And I know I can harvest. It's a good industry. And cocoa have a lot of money. If you care cocoa, you have money.
When you talk about carbon footprints, because our project was also a sustainable project, we also wanted people to be able to get certain types of services in close proximity to where they reside.
When you brush cut, you use less chemicals, and less chemicals is always better. So.
In addition to learning about cocoa planting and propagation, the project also taught about plant management, cocoa processing, and one additional income stream, bees.
The scope of the training was practical beekeeping. From A, rearing bees, keeping bees, finding location, to Z, in extraction and everything, pot clean and so on, labeling. Some of the materials the program handed over to the trainees was a box of bees, full of bees, and other beekeeping materials. The cocoa will take about between 1 year and 2 years to start growing and bearing for them. Beekeeping will also another source of income. They can get honey to extract to sell to sustain their family also. We need bees because why? Bees pollinate about probably 70 to 80% of our food income, like mangoes, avocados, turnips, even tomatoes and so on. So we need the bees to pollinate our food. No bees, no food on your table.
Through Can's holistic and sustainable approach to cocoa production in Dominica, the hope is that Dominica can cash in on this growing industry.
This project by CAN, we see it as an important initiative to begin to look at what we really have, what is the value of what we have, to document it, catalog it, and so that the country itself can benefit from this billion-dollar industry that is existing worldwide.
Compared to bulk cocoa, which sells at up to $3,500 per metric ton, the International Cocoa Organization estimated in 2016 that fine flavor cocoa can sell at up to $10,000 per metric ton.
The demand for fine flavor cocoa is increasing, right, all over the world. And I think it places Dominica with an advantage, being that we have that resource locally. Most of the cocoa available in Dominica is fine flavor, but we actually have some of the finest flavor that you could find anywhere in the world.
What we try to do in that small project is to set the foundation and to begin to let people understand that cocoa, like every other crop, is science driven, and once we understand the science of the crop and we can train people, arm them, tool them with the necessary and appropriate knowledge, then we can begin to build a strong and vibrant cocoa industry. We do not want to be just carriers of water and hewers of wood. We would like to have a cocoa industry that is such that we can do the product transformation. We can add value to cocoa. There are a range of products that you can get from cocoa. But before you even get to there, you must start with the basics. And what CAN has sought to do is to start with the basics.
With the fundamentals in place, this little-known island of Dominica could once again return to being a cocoa haven and join the elite group of fine flavor cocoa producing countries, which could provide massive gains for the island. For CAN and Dominica, this is just the beginning. How far the industry goes is up to the people of Dominica. But for now, the future looks bright.